morning, church. Happy Sunday to us all in Jesus' name. We want to appreciate the name of the Most High God again for another beautiful opportunity to be in the presence of God. We thank God because He has spared us. Despite all crises in town, we appreciate God for giving us the grace to be here. May His name be praised forever in Jesus' name. Amen. This is another year, 2022, we are having our Health Week. And like I mentioned in the first service, those of us that were in the first service, we can testify that God is good. Now we are going to have the second session again in this second service. But before I call our own father to come up, I want to make us know this, that tomorrow also the program continues. Tomorrow we are going to have a panel discussion whereby we have leagues of seasoned and experienced medical personnel that they will be answering a lot of questions that we have. Any question that cannot be answered pertaining to us or anybody, let us just come tomorrow. We have doctors, nurses, lab scientists, we have nutritionists, we have counselors that will be in church tomorrow because of us. So let us make it a date tomorrow by 5:36 p.m. But today we'll be talking on hypertension. And like the first speaker said, hypertension is now a household name. Everybody believes what is the big deal about hypertension. But I want to tell you, children of God, there are a lot of big deals about hypertension. I am not here to talk. Grandpa is here to give us what we want to know about it. And I also want us to note that there is eye examination today. Doctors are in the clinic and at the children's church. So immediately after the service, please let us use the opportunity to visit them, especially the little children. Let us take them there. They might not be able to explain themselves, but when they get there and they see doctors, they will attend to them. Now, let us sit back now and we clap our hands together. Originally, in the first service, I said, when I was introducing Dr. Lubiton, I said he's our son. But I can never say Grandpa is our son now. So permit me to welcome Grandpa. Let us clap our hands together as we welcome Grandpa Dr. Aderemi Aderoju. You are welcome, sir.
Praise the Lord. Hallelujah. Praise the living Jesus. First, I want to thank the Lord for making it possible for us all to witness another health week. Secondly, I want to thank the medical committee for asking me to give this talk. I want to agree that hypertension, otherwise called high blood pressure, and also known as elevated blood pressure. We can mention all this and we are saying the same thing. Hypertension, elevated BP, and we are all saying the same thing. In Yoruba, it's also known as, who knows the Yoruba name for hypertension? Pardon? Different names. But I know it's called Ejeriru or Ejegugbono. This is all hypertension. We would have a kind of medical lecture, and I will make that as simple as possible. And after that, we will have the opportunity of asking questions. To start with, what is hypertension? Hypertension is a way of assessing function of the heart in addition to others. And when we talk about hypertension, when we talk about blood pressure, heart rate, blood pressure, heart rate, or what we call pulse, which we can access, they are all features of the functions of the heart, which can tell us how well the heart is functioning in an individual. That is my heart functioning well, or is it not functioning well? Hypertension is one of the features that may tell us that our heart is not working. So when we check our blood pressure, we want information. Is my blood pressure normal? Is it not normal? If it is not normal, how is it not normal? Therefore, there are ways of measuring blood pressure. And if I can assume that I'm addressing 18 and over, that is, I'm talking to adults, adult blood pressure. If I ask anybody now, I'm sure they will tell me it's normal, or it's 120/80, or it is not normal, it is 140/90, or it is low, they say it is 160, or that kind of thing. I'm sure we have all been asked questions, or we have been told by our doctors or nurses or any health caregiver about our blood pressure. So it is something that everybody knows. It is something that we all read about and we hear about. But the point today I want to make is how important the normal blood pressure, how important normal blood pressure is. I want to emphasize that today. And the reason why I would need to do that, where our kidneys are. We have one here, one there. It may affect our brain, and it may return to the heart to affect the heart. The source of the blood pressure itself, it may affect it. How do we measure blood pressure? 18 and above. Do I have anybody here who has never had his blood pressure measured? Okay, so we have all. So we have this machine we call blood pressure machine. The medical people will call it sphygmomanogram. And when we measure it, it gives us some readings. The normal blood pressure for an adult is 120/80. The one on top, we call it systolic. The one below, we call it diastolic. It doesn't matter. I don't want to bother you with all this medical terminology. What you need to know, what I need to know is that my blood pressure is normal or my blood pressure is not normal. There have been a lot of studies about variations in blood pressure. That is, when it is adequately measured, the value that you get, whether the top or the one below, there may be variations, and they usually are variations. So this has led physicians to have what we call pre-hypertension. That is, before hypertension. It's not normal, before hypertension. But we don't need to worry ourselves about that, because we have various divisions, which does not mean anything to you or to me in terms of clinical entity. However, if you have a blood pressure that is a little different from 120/80, it does not mean that you have hypertension. For instance, for an average adult, if your blood pressure is 130/80, 130/80 accepted as being normal. Although we will note it and we will ask you to check from time to time. And Although we are talking about hypertension, we cannot exclude the fact that some people will come and say, oh, my blood pressure is low. Low blood pressure is called hypotension. Hyper and hypo. I've seen people who have complained that their blood pressure was 100/70, and they're worried. I want to assure you that ordinarily, blood pressure of 100/70 is accepted as normal. However, if you have been running a blood pressure of 160, 120, which is very high, and then suddenly it drops to 100/70, then you need to see your doctor so he can explain and find out why the blood pressure has dropped to 100/70. When I talked about comorbidity, the organs that we should take note of are the kidney, because when hypertension affects the kidney, it can lead to kidney failure. When hypertension affects the head, that is the brain, it can lead to a stroke. Stroke simply means that your brain system, your CNS, your central nervous system, is not functioning adequately. And that may manifest in some ways. You may not be able to lift arms, legs. You may not be able to speak. You may not be able to see. So if the blood pressure is also high, that is hypertension, it may affect our eyes. So it can affect almost all organs of the body. So how do we diagnose hypertension? How do we confirm hypertension? How do we ascertain that these other organs that I've mentioned have not been affected? Because that's the goal of managing hypertension. So there are basic investigations that we do after we have seen that this patient has hypertension, or that we are screening this patient for hypertension. Number one, we do a chest X-ray. And when we do a chest X-ray, we want to know whether the heart is big, whether it is enlarged. Because if you have chronic hypertension, that would have caused the heart to be enlarged. So if we see it in an 18-year-old patient, for instance, and the heart is big, we will be alarmed, we'll be worried, and we will need to investigate further. We also do something we call ECG. It's just to test the cardiac activity, whether heart is beating normally, whether it is beating regularly, and so on. And then we go to do blood tests. Blood tests pertaining to the heart, blood tests pertaining to the kidneys, blood tests pertaining to the liver. So I'm mentioning all this so that we know that the heart and blood pressure, they do not exist in isolation. They affect all other organs. When we talk about prevention later, I will talk about how our lifestyle and what we do and what we do not do, how they affect our well-being as far as blood pressure is concerned. What are the causes of hypertension? What are the causes of elevated blood pressure? Most of the time, we do not know. I want to repeat that most of the time, we do not know the causes of hypertension. And because of this, we have some kind of classification of hypertension, which is not so specific. We call it essential hypertension or primary hypertension. That is the hypertension that we do not know the cause. And I want to tell you that more than 90% of hypertension, we do not know the cause. However, we know there are factors. No, that's primary, essential. The second one we call secondary because we know the cause. And that is less than 10% of all hypertension cases that we see. We know that there are factors that relate to development of hypertension. Again, number one is genetic or family. So that when the hospital and people start asking you, was your father diabetic? Was your father hypertensive? Was he diabetic? Was he this? Was he that? Did he take alcohol? Was he smoking? And so on. We are looking for factors that may precipitate or that may make hypertension worse. Not necessarily because it is the cause. Long time ago, it was believed that hypertension was not common amongst Africans and indeed amongst black altogether. And the reason they adduced for that was that we had no problems. And nothing bothered us, and so on. And this was the case until the 50s or so. True, it is true that anxiety, stress, depression, and all those terrible situations may be found in hypertension or may be associated with hypertension. The truth is that nobody has proved that stress, that anxiety is the cause of hypertension. But those circumstances may make hypertension worse, especially when we talk about 120/80. The 120, everything can affect it. If you are not happy, even when you are too happy, that blood pressure may go up. If you go to check your results or you check your bank statement, and the blood pressure may go up. Very little change in your situation can affect the systolic, the one on top. So, for us, it is nice, it is necessary to know our family history, what we call family medical history. Ask your mom, ask your dad, ask about his own father, that is your own grandparents, and so on. And while this may not necessarily discourage you from doing certain things, it is important that you should know what your blood pressure is. I'm not talking about diabetes today, but anybody who has hypertension, we should also ask whether he or she has diabetes. I hope we know what diabetes is. We know it means excess blood sugar. Excess blood sugar, which manifests by sugar hypertension that we know. We say those ones are secondary there are some other illnesses, but the hypertension just comes from that other disease. And the common ones are, again, kidney disease. Kidney disease. Then some other ones, we call them names, endocrine and things like that. But the one that that one will be discovered in the hospital. But the important thing is just to know that my blood pressure is normal, my blood pressure is not normal. Sometimes when we go to hospital and the doctor or whoever is a medical health giver says, I want to do some tests. I want to do this, I want to do that, I want to do that. It may cost you a little bit and you worry. Why is he looking for this? Why is he looking for that? It is because this may affect that. And unless we take care of both of them, we are just scratching the floor. We have not done anything. So when we have confirmed the diagnosis, we have done our investigations. We would say we are ready for treatment. Well, let me just sound another note of warning. How does a patient or how does an individual who is hypertensive, what does he complain of? What does a patient who has a blood pressure of 180 over 110 goes to the hospital because he has malaria, or goes to the pharmacy, or goes to anywhere he can get help? How does he complain? How does he think that I may have hypertension? The truth is that he may have no symptom at all. And this is why hypertension is called a silent killer. If we bring a SFIG now, blood pressure machine, and I say, okay, measure blood pressure of everybody here. Whether anyone who knew before he was hypertensive or not, I'm sure we will have a significant number of those who have abnormally high blood pressure reading. So why has he not complained? Why has he or she complained that I think I have hypertension? There's nothing like it. Some people will say, oh, I have no headache. Well, I can jump, I can run, I can whatever. All that would not mean that one does not have hypertension. So the answer to whether I have blood pressure or not, whether I have hypertension or not, lies in my asking for the test. 18 and above. I'm not talking about about children age group. I'm not saying children don't have hypertension. No, they have in certain setting. So if I see people who say, well, I've not been to the hospital in the last 15 years, I have not been to a doctor, I have not been to the nurse, I have not anything, the person is not doing himself or herself any good. And I will talk about regular checking later. Hypertension has treatment. We can treat hypertension. We cannot cure it. Hypertension is treatable. Hypertension is not curable as at now. The one that may be cured will be a transient, a temporary rise. Maybe something happens, like I said before, and it's elevated, but it's not sustained. We will not bother to give any medication for that. And because of this variation, before we confirm somebody hypertensive, we would have checked the blood pressure more than once. At least under resting condition, the blood pressure at different times, the blood pressure must be elevated at least twice before you start giving medication. Okay, so we have submitted ourselves for test. We have been told that our blood pressure is elevated, even though we may not have complaints. Some may have. They have something we call palpitation. Do we know what palpitation is? No. When we are unduly conscious of our heartbeat, as we are sitting down here, does anybody think he knows whether his heart is beating or not? We are not conscious of it. It's even I am talking. I'm not aware that my heart is beating. I know it is beating, because if it's not beating, I will not be talking. But when you become definitely conscious of your heartbeat, boom, 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 then you have palpitation. That's what we call palpitation. Also, when you sleep and you sleep on your left side, you can experiment this after you get home. You sleep on your left side, you'll be conscious of your heartbeat. You only need to turn this side, and this is because your heart is on the left side. So it's not abnormal if your heart is beating when you're. Don't be afraid. Don't refuse to sleep off, because so that you will not. If not. Okay? So we go to treatment. And as I said, I think hypertensive treatment, that is anti-hypertensive medication, is one area of medical practice where you can pick and choose. You have thousands of different types of tablets. And that is because there may be what may not be acceptable to me, may be acceptable to the next person. I should have a choice. And they are classified, they are divided into types of the one that we cure like this, the one that we cure like that. I don't think you need all the details about this. That's why I'm talking what I think we need and what we may be offered. For those who deny that they are hypertensive, for those who may say, I don't need medication, for those who may say, I can take it when I like, when I feel something. I always know when my blood pressure is high. I would advise them to take it easy and submit to medical advice and medical treatment. I am sorry to tell, particularly men, that virtually all antihypertensive medications have one or other side effect. The ones that may affect women will be if we give too much of medication, which means we have dropped the blood pressure, and so they get up, they are feeling dizzy, or they are falling about, or knocking their heads, and so on. Apart from that, it's a benign medication. For men, it may affect some of their functions, but even that can be taken care of by swapping, or by changing, or by modifying dosages of medication that we give. So, high blood pressure is treatable, and we should not deny ourselves of the opportunity of good treatment. If we do not treat, Or if we do not diagnose in time that we have high blood pressure, then there may be complications. And I'm sure in this audience, we would have seen people with stroke, either on the street with their characteristic gait, like this. We would have seen them, or we would have seen them in hospitals, or we would have them as friends or family, and so on. Stroke, there's hardly any stroke without hypertension. I put hardly, because sometimes when they come to hospital and you check the blood pressure and they have a stroke, then you say, okay, is this a stroke? But there may be a reason for the blood pressure to be normal at that time. So it's not that I cannot have a stroke, I do not have hypertension. There's nothing like that in medicine. So that is one complication. And you can avoid that largely by taking medication. Medication that you can decide, but this one I don't want, this one I want, this one, the dose is too much. You can negotiate, because that is medicine. You can take what you want to go into your system, because you have choices. Stroke. If you put stroke aside, and the blood pressure goes on and on, uncorrected, untreated, and then you go to the waterworks of the body system, and that is the kidney. It is the kidney that filters everything that your body does. Well, the kidney and the liver, mostly the kidney, that filters almost anything your body does not deserve or your body does not desire. It is the kidney. And once the kidney shuts down, there's really not much of life. Because you will now, if you want to survive, you will be confined to taking medication. Sometimes it's better now. Long time ago, when those drugs that were in use were not as refined as at present. You may be swallowing something like 20 tablets in the morning, 10 in the afternoon, another 10 at night. So much so that at some point you will say, what is life? What am I living for? If all I live for is just consuming drugs and drugs and drugs. I'm emphasizing this for us to know. Some people will say something will kill somebody, and so on. So we should not adopt that kind of attitude. And eventually, if you have money, you say, oh, I'll go for kidney dialysis, kidney or renal dialysis. That one also is not normal life. And when you leave that, you may say, okay, I want a kidney transplant. Even when you have kidney transplant, you will need medication to keep the kidney functioning. Otherwise, there will be some antagonistic agents against that kidney that is there. So one, it is better for us not to have hypertension. Two, if we find, due to no fault of ours, that we're hypertensive, then we should seek remedy, we should seek treatment in the appropriate situation, we should be informed, and then we can live like any other person. I've talked about drugs. Now, how do we prevent, within our own power, hypertension? What do I need to do? We talk of lifestyle. Lifestyle, that is number one. The kind of life we live. And currently, the number one agent that we should try to avoid, not totally avoid, but minimize the intake is salt. Salt. If you have on your table at home, just go and throw away. Salt is number one. I think it's the next target that WHO will be, apart from cigarettes, alcohol, and so on. Salt is number one. You can control that. You don't even need any McNiday to legislate any law. The next one, I will combine. I will say lack of exercise, stroke obesity. Lack of exercise, stroke obesity. And for the chief executives here that I see, if you don't do exercise, you leave home in the morning, you get into your car, air conditioned, the driver here, somebody else will carry the briefcase, and so on. You get to the office, you press bell here, press here, and you continue like that. Even when they bring a file, somebody will open it for you before you look at it. And you finish, go home. Reverse motion. The same thing. At night, you get home, you're tired, exhausted. Sit, watch telly, the news, and so on and so forth. Bedtime. Cycle like that, 24 hours. Sometimes we talking golf. They say, okay, I play golf or something. But even that is not regular. And you know how cheap it is to maintain fitness. Just walk every evening or 3 times in a week, Monday to Friday or whatever. Walk, ordinary walk. Even here, within here, just walk around about half an hour, 45 minutes. A little sweat. So you are not eating salt. And you are not too sedentary. You are not too inactive. And you are feeling fit. And you drink plenty of water. Whatever you have, Please, how many minutes more do I have? When did I start? I don't want to take all the time. How many minutes more? When do we start questions? 11:45. Okay. So these are all that you can control. In addition to this blood pressure thing, you will see that some of the things I've mentioned, even the diabetes, part of the treatment is exercise. Because when you are diabetic, there are 3 things that you may be treated with. One we say diet and exercise. The other one we say tablet. And the third one we say injection. So diet and exercise is very important in any of these chronic medical illnesses that we're talking about. Okay? Now, there is something called, that is comorbidity with hypertension. There's something called lipid profile state, which most of us will just call cholesterol. If you're hypertensive, if your cholesterol is high, I just use cholesterol. It's more than cholesterol, different types of cholesterol. And they are not all of the same relevance in terms of disease causation. But let's just say cholesterol. Unfortunately, cholesterol also is more likely to accompany lack of exercise, bad diets, intake. So that is why we refer to them as lifestyle conditions. I want to acknowledge that other things, sometimes even when doctors give medication, some of these medications also, there are some we call steroids or so. Some of these medications. But the doctor is aware that this thing that I'm giving, if I give for so long, I should give intermittently. And if I give intermittently, it is likely that this one will not cause any major harm. Okay? The eye. The eye. You know, I said the brain, the kidneys, the heart, the eyes. How does blood pressure affect the eye? If you have hypertension, how does it affect the eye? Most of us, the eye people are there. Most of us, impairment of vision, problem with seeing, is related to what we call refractive error. That is, if I wear glasses, it will correct it. That is not your own problem. You are not the cause. The cause of that is in the lens. The lens here. And they just need to correct that. That's why it's easy to give you glasses that will correct it, and you continue to see. Another major cause is glaucoma. Glaucoma. But the one I'm talking about, high blood pressure, is that if the blood pressure remains chronically elevated, it will affect something central in the eye. Those of us who did biology at whatever level, there's something we call optic nerve. It's a nerve. And it's at the center of the eye. And once the blood pressure assaults it, the time comes, it becomes inaccessible to light and to other functions. So we may not see. We may not see at all. So we have all these avenues through which we may escape those complications that high blood pressure may cause. It's so easy. I don't see much of difficulty in any of these things that we have mentioned. Except for us to be aware, except for us to be conscious that when our blood pressure is assaulted, when our blood pressure gets beyond normal, we are at the same time burning our kidneys, our heart, our brain, and so on and so forth. Alcohol is also important too. I want to talk about alcohol. I know we don't drink alcohol in the Baptist. Or do we? The trick about alcohol is that I know some of you must have read that 1 or 2 drinks of red wine, they say it's good for your heart. It's good for this. Some of you must have read that. But where is the mark? Where is the line between just a little and a little more than little? Where is it? And unfortunately, alcohol too. This is what when I counsel about alcohol, I tell people, I say, okay, forget about spiritual. that I'm saying don't drink. The Bible didn't say don't drink, but the convention says no alcohol, no alcohol, no alcohol. And so, okay, just leave that. Let us look at what alcohol does to you. Alcohol is a terrible agent. It affects everywhere. It affects the brain. It affects the heart. It affects the liver. It affects the pancreas. It affects almost everywhere and leads to morbidity, chronic ill health. So what is the beauty of it? And it's only a trick that we are saying, okay, I can take 1 unit. Nigeria, what is 1 unit of alcohol in Nigeria? Is it one? Somebody said 1 pint. So I'm digressing a little bit. I've taken permission from our guy in medical committee, because I have always wanted to be able to reach as many people as possible. And before questions, 3 minutes. This is general. I want to advise us, when we have any health challenges, when we have complaints, please let us be proactive. Don't let us wait. Don't let us say, okay,